Well, hello and welcome to Data Foundations, choosing the right database, SQL, noSQL, etc., and operating environment, on-prem versus cloud. So today's awesome webinar is sponsored by DataStax and Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach with Actual Tech Media. I'm so happy to be your moderator for this Tech Talk discussion, along with my friend, Scott Becker, who's going to join us in just a moment. Now, the idea behind the Tech Talk series is to keep things short and punchy. We know that you are all busy humans, so in these mini sessions, we invite experts to come on and have a quick chat with us about trending industry issues and ideas. One of the things that we hear the most from our audience are concerns and questions about approaches and decision-making within IT environments. How do you evaluate the best solution for you and your organization? What questions should you be asking? What trends should you be aware of? So today we're going to delve into two major areas that you're probably already exploring within your organization today, or maybe you will be soon. And that's databases and operating environments. So this is a big topic, lots to cover, and we brought in two awesome experts here today who are going to help guide us through this important conversation. So in just a moment, I'm going to hand things over to Scott Becker. He's going to hop on camera with these two incredible innovators from DataStax and from Pure Storage. Now, I know Scott is ready and waiting. I'm sure you're all excited to jump in. So I'm just going to zip through a few of these important housekeeping things, and then we can bring our guests in from the wings and get this session rolling. Okay, so first, follow along with me here. We're going to take a look at your audience console. Now, there are two important things that I want to point out. One is that questions tab, and the other one is the handouts tab. So first, let's talk questions because I love questions. The best part of a Tech Talk is, well, yeah, I mean, the talking. So today you have a chance to ask questions directly of an expert. Now, make sure to get those questions into the live chat window. These sessions do have a tendency to go by pretty quick. So if we're not stopping to take your questions along the way, the DataStax and Pure Storage team will follow up with you after the Tech Talk. So they will get those questions. They will be in touch with you. So please make sure you get those in. Now, you can also use that questions tab to get in touch with the Actual Tech Media team. So if any tech issues come up today, knock on wood, a quick reminder that a browser refresh is usually going to do the trick. That tends to work magic on any issues, but if not, shoot us a message and we will be there to help. Now, I mentioned that there were two important things in your console. We looked at the questions tab, and if you remember, the second one was the handouts tab. So if you click on over to that handouts tab, you can check out some upcoming webinars and read through the Gorilla Guide book club. Best of all, click on those links for some awesome reading from DataStax and from Pure Storage. I was just reading the solution brief from Pure Storage on high performance SQL backup and this incredible white paper from DataStax, the database architects and administrators guide. There's just a whole bunch of wonderful links in there and content. So please do go click, open those tabs, download, save for later, and share and check them out after the webinar today. Now, it is not just awesome content that we're giving away. We also have a $300 Amazon gift card as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, I'm going to remind you, you must be in live attendance at the webinar today to qualify for the prize. All winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not totally sure what those conditions are, no stress. I don't expect you to have them memorized. That's fine. Head on back over to that handouts tab, the second of our important features today. And if you click into that handouts tab, scroll down to the bottom, you'll find the full ATM prize terms and conditions there. Okay, and the fun is not stopping there, guys, because not only do we have the $300 Amazon gift card that we're giving away, we also have a $50 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away to the best question asked in our session today. So please do make sure that you are getting those questions in. Now, I'm going to remind you, if you've been on these sessions before, you will know this already. We review all questions asked after the webinar. So if we don't get to your question today, and again, these sessions are going to move quickly, if we don't ask it out loud and live in the session, no stress. The teams will review and we'll take a look after the fact, and then we will get in touch with that best question. So please do keep getting that in. Okay, well, One last thing before I invite Scott to join in with us here. I know he's impatiently waiting to come on screen here, but I have one last question for you all. So this is a test to see how awake you all. Have you had your coffee this morning? Are you awake and functioning? We want to know, what is your time frame for making any potential updates at your company? So when you're thinking about the databases and operating environments that we're going to learn about today, are you thinking that these are changes you'd like to be implementing, in the next couple of weeks, the next few months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, or you have no idea and you're still totally in the ideation phase? So this is helpful for us to just get an idea of where you're at in this journey. And I see a lot of not sures out there, and then also a decent number of in the next year. So that's pretty exciting. That means some of you are really ready to jump in and some of you are still kind of exploring, and that's a great place to start this conversation today. So thanks to everyone who filled out that poll, and let's move out of our intro and get started with today's Tech Talk. So just a reminder again, if you haven't joined us for a Tech Talk in the past, these are a bit different than our usual sessions. So we have two experts here with us today, Chelsea Navo, Vice President, Enterprise Architecture and Innovation at DataStax, and Melody Zacharias, Senior Microsoft Solutions Marketing Manager at Pure Storage. Now, these fascinating speakers are waiting in the wings to chat with all of us about hot trends and what you need to know about the world of database and operating performance and platforms. So let's not keep them waiting any longer. I'm going to hand things over to Scott Becker, my wonderful friend and fellow moderator here at Actual Tech Media, who is currently hanging out with Chelsea. So Scott and Chelsea, welcome to the Tech Talk. Come on in. Let's get things started.
Well, Chelsea, thanks for joining us today for this Tech Talk on data foundations. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So this is an event about the big decisions organizations need to make in terms of databases. You've got a great vantage point on a lot of those issues as the Vice President for Enterprise Architecture and Innovation at DataStax. What are you seeing as a trend with your customers? Are they running their data in the cloud or on-prem, and why? I mean, what's sort of the big picture?
Sure. So, when we kind of zoom out to the macro trends, we're looking at, IDC is saying around 2020, there was about 65 zettabytes of data worldwide, which, you put that in perspective, your PC might have a terabyte of data and it's a billion of those for just one, zettabyte.
That's a lot.
And then as we fast forward to 2025, they're projecting 180 zettabytes, right? So it's 2.5 times. And we think about what's powering that. It's a lot of customer interactions. It's a lot of enterprise innovation. But it's kind of driving a couple things. It's how are enterprises going to store that data, and how are they going to build these systems that help handle that type of scale and that interaction with their customers. And so what we're seeing on our side is aligns to what IDC is looking at, is roughly about 65% of cloud data workloads will be hosted in a cloud, whether that's multi-cloud, private cloud, et cetera. And so when we look at large enterprises, they might have a couple different solutions. They might say, hey, for this data workload, we want to stay on-prem. And for those workloads, we're seeing a trend of people wanting to run data in Kubernetes. And so when you look across the board, people are modernizing their data estates because they know they need to have high availability, because they need to keep their businesses online for their customers. But they also need to be able to handle this scale that kind of aligns to industry projections.
Gotcha. And so, for people beginning their cloud journey, what are some of the high-level lessons that you've learned that have helped customers?
Yeah, and this is actually an area I really geek out about, because the last few years at DataStax, we've had a number of large-scale customers that come in and say, hey, our data centers are super expensive. We have a lot of folks that are retiring. We need to be able to modernize our systems. The profile of our customers have changed. So take COVID, for instance. We had a number of customers reach out to us to say, hey, COVID accelerated our path to cloud. Now that we have more people that are looking for that digital experience rather than going in the store and buying a jacket, they're buying the jacket online, et cetera. How do we update our data estate to align to these new experiences we're trying to drive? So high level, the ones that are most successful, we help with not just their cloud strategy of how they're going to the cloud, but how they're doing their data management strategy in conjunction with that. Because a common mistake we've seen is that people kind of run to the cloud and they kind of lift and shift the data, and now they have extra data silos, right? And data silos is not a unique problem for any big enterprise, but to intentionally make more just to kind of get that check mark of, yeah, okay, we're in the cloud now. Like it doesn't have to be that way. And, we help customers so they don't build up this unnecessary technical debt on that journey.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that technical debt. What are some of the pain points that people are finding in this cloud journey?
Yeah, so there's a couple ones. So some people, I kind of jokingly call it data hoarding. It's like locking up your data. You don't get that real-time data, and you're trying to get business decisions, but you're only making use of a small portion of your data. So part of the solution there is, how do you make that accessible to your developers, whether that's internal to your company, external to your company. Oftentimes it's through APIs. Obviously, you want to do it through a security first approach to it. Another one that's probably the most popular reason about why people, when they're looking at, well, do I stay on-prem or do I go to the cloud? A lot of them want that no ops experience. They don't want to manage their databases anymore. They want to be able to empower their developers to focus on their business and be able to have that extra velocity. Because really what that extra velocity is going to get them is a more competitive edge, but it also really sparks creativity and innovation in these spaces to help them figure out how do they better connect with their customers in new and rich ways. And I think maybe one of the biggest ones, depending on the audience here, is the overspending. So a lot of people, when they do start going into cloud, they might size for their peak season workloads because they don't want to be undersized, and they end up paying way too much. And we don't want anybody to be shelling out extra money that they don't need. And so we work with them to say, well, how do we best right size what those workloads look like? And how do we optimize and make use of things like serverless and other technologies to help with those peak season preparations and execution?
Gotcha. So you've talked a lot about some of the opportunities and the challenges in that cloud move. What is it that DataStax does to help with those issues?
Yeah, so DataStax has helped a number of companies on kind of their transformational journeys around their data. So data is our core business. We are the commercial entity behind Apache Cassandra, and we've done a lot of innovation in the last few years around, how do we take Cassandra to the cloud with AstraDB and make it a database as a service? How do we really open up the data access, like I talked about before, with APIs, with something called Stargate? And then how do you run your data on-prem in Kubernetes if you wanted to, around Cassandra and other modernization and technologies that help with deployment and make things easier to operate at larger scales?
Yeah, and I suspect a good portion of our audience is familiar with Cassandra, but for some of us who aren't as familiar, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Cassandra and sort of how it relates to NoSQL.
Sure. So Cassandra is a NoSQL database. It's probably most famous for its scale and speed. It came out of Facebook many years ago. The Facebook search needed a new way to handle the scale that they needed to operate at. And so my background is with relational databases. I was a DBA for many, many years. And there's kind of a mindset shift when people move from SQL to NoSQL. And I liken it to like a space versus time concept, right? And so, an old system would have one copy of your data to run maybe a really complex query. It might take 5 minutes. Back then it was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go walk down the hall, get my coffee, come back, I'd have the data I was looking for. And that was great back then, right? But now everybody wants data at their fingertips, and they want that visibility very quickly. So when you take something like Cassandra, you have 3 copies of your data, and storage is cheap, so that's not as big of a deal anymore. And then you get that result like this really instantly. And what that does is empowers things like mobile apps and things where you need your customers or your business users to be able to have real-time data at their fingertips to make decisions or to make purchases, or whatever that outcome you're trying to drive looks like. And the shift between like SQL and NoSQL, Cassandra is known for the high availability, right? And so I spent a large part of my career with log shipping and trying to get relational systems to be able to have that high availability. Right. And actually, one of the reasons I came to DataStax was, we had a data architect come visit us, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's highly available out of the box, right?" And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't believe you, right? And he's like, no, like, let me walk you through how it works. And to me, that was that aha moment of like, wow, like this is really powerful. And like, think of all the problems that we can solve now that we have that high availability and that ease of scale and that ease of development use kind of all combined into one.
Wow. Yeah, and how does DataStax use Cassandra in your offerings?
So we have a few different offerings. And part of what we want to be able to empower our customers is be able to run your data wherever you like, right? And so there's different flavors of Cassandra. If you want to run open source Cassandra, great. Whether that's on-prem or in the cloud, we have a support offering called DataStax Luna that can help with that. If you want to run a managed version of Cassandra, we offer an enterprise version of Cassandra called DataStax Enterprise that has integrated search, analytics, and graph technology all together with enterprise security. And that can be run as IaaS or it can be run on-prem. We have a number of customers that actually run it in a hybrid database fashion. And then probably our coolest one here is AstroDB, which is our Cassandra database as a service. And that has a free tier for people can log in, no credit card required. And that's actually a great way for people to get started who want to learn about Cassandra. We have a bunch of starter apps there, and it's a really, really great developer experience.
Oh, that's really cool. And as far as getting started, let's say somebody's an Oracle DBA. How do they get started with noSQL or with DataStax?
Yeah, so if you think about a team, right? So we had a major US airliner that adopted Cassandra a few years back. And it was an all Oracle DBA team. And they kind of said, well, this seems like it's going to be really different. I'm not really sure what we're going to do about it. And so what we did is we partnered with them. And in that first project, we embedded one of our solution architects in that team. And we delivered that project with them, right? So it was kind of on the job, very relevant to their data. But one of the messages there is like, they know that airliners' data better than anybody else in the world, right? And it's so much, that takes you so far in the data modeling. And yes, data modeling is very different because in the relational world, you're modeling against entities and there's attributes to those entities. In the NoSQL world and in Cassandra, you're looking at the users and what are the queries the users are going to run and optimizing for that user experience. And that's part of where Cassandra gets its speed from is, really understanding, how you build systems that are very people-centric. And so with the airliner team, we went through and delivered that project and they're like, wow, this is really great. So then what they did is they took that team and they split them into two and they did a version 2 of application A, and then they started a new application B, and they brought in new people to each of those. And that kind of organically helped them build up their own competency in the technology while delivering on time. And it's something that was fun because once people get in there, like, oh, wow, like I can do this. This is like, look what I made, right? It's that engineering excitement that kind of gets built up and delivered as well.
Yeah. Well, Chelsea, this has been great. This has been really interesting. If somebody wants to get started with DataStax, where should they go? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So astro.datastax.com is where you can go and get your free account. You can sign up. You get free credits for that. There's applications that help get you started. I highly recommend checking us out on YouTube and Twitch. Our DevRel team is phenomenal. They have workshops every week that kind of go hands-on. If you prefer to learn kind of self-directed, we have a number of white papers. I think the most popular one on our datastax.com website is the DBA's Guide to NoSQL. And that really helps if you're brand new to NoSQL and how do you start thinking about executing on that mindset. I highly recommend that one. And then there's a number of things like Jeff Carpenter's O'Reilly Cassandra book. That is also one of the top reads of people who are just getting started to get more comfortable and understanding, the power that is Apache Cassandra. And so I think here is we have a great community of folks. The Apache community, Apache Cassandra community is amazing. I think 4.1 is right around the corner. There's a lot of energy there. So folks who want to get more into the community aspect, there's a lot of different ways to engage there. And of course, if you want to meet with me or some of my colleagues, you can email us at sales@datastax.com and we can have some architecture sessions together.
Okay, excellent. Well, Chelsea, it was great talking to you. Thanks for joining us for this Tech Talk.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thank you to Scott and to Chelsea. What an awesome chat. I love the terms technical debt and data hoarding. Those are great. And Scott and I were just chatting about this. Cassandra, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but it's kind of ubiquitous. It's very commonly used. It's used by Apple for iTunes and iCloud. Netflix is using Cassandra for personalization engines. Spotify uses Cassandra to store user profile data and metadata about playlists and artists. And Starbucks uses Cassandra to power the personalization in their mobile app. So yeah, Apple, Netflix, Spotify, Starbucks, some of these major companies that we interact with on a daily basis are personalizing things based on or with Cassandra, which is a pretty neat tool. So I was really enjoying learning a little bit more about that. Happy we could join you guys for that chat. Now, you'll notice that we have a poll up at the moment asking what further information you would like to get from DataStax. Now, again, this was just a quick overview and chat. We're just kind of brushing the surface here of a few really important ideas. There's lots more to dig into with these solutions. So if you want to learn more about DataStax, obviously, yes, head to that handout, but also click on this poll. Let the team know how they can support you in kind of wherever you're at in this exploration, in this journey. Now, I mentioned that we have 2 conversations lined up for you today, and I believe that Scott is now ready with Melody. So they are sitting ready to jump on camera here and get started. So why don't we bring them in for our next exciting chat? Scott, welcome back. And Melody, welcome to the Tech Talk. Over to you both.
Well, Melody, thanks for joining us for this Tech Talk on data foundations and choosing the right database and operating environment. The first question I wanted to ask you about is SQL versus NoSQL. What's the best option, for my database?
Well, that's really a tough question because it's not that there's a best option for your database. It's what's really the best option for your business, because they're very different. Relational databases, they're very mature. They've been proven and they've been widely implemented. And they are like that because they're related to, structured data, tables, fixed schemas, and they run unstructured query language. And they've been like that for a long time. And that's the way a lot of standard businesses run. So this is really great for standard fixed data that doesn't, that really relates to each other. So things like people, addresses, orders, those types of things, where the data is very structured in a table format. Whereas something like unstructured data or NoSQL is more for something like high performance or data that's not necessarily related to each other as much, but you need something that's going to excel in speed, really scalable, has a resilience, it's got some availability, it's got some ability to join with other, not necessarily normalized data. It's unstructured. You can use key value pairs. Sometimes you want to join to things like documents as opposed to just specific data. But one of the big things to note about the differences is something called ACID, which is a guarantee between that data is got a certain, that the transactions are not going to be basically stuck in a middle state. And relational databases really guarantee that, whereas not all non-SQL databases are going to do that. So that's an important difference. So you have to make sure that you're doing what's best for your business and ensure that you're able to pick what's best to move forward for that. So each different type has a different benefit for both your workload and your industry.
Okay, great. So that's a lot of good things to think about on SQL versus NoSQL. Once you decide, on which type you want to use, then how do you decide where to put it?
Well, again, there's this thing as a DBA that we have, and we classically say it depends. So it's the classic DBA answer of it depends. And then it depends on what works best for your business. Some businesses work better in the cloud, and some businesses work better on premises. And often you're going to come up with something that's a hybrid. So sometimes on premises, you're going to really find that speed and agility are really important for you. So performance is really key if you're going to be on premise. You can go really fast. Whereas in the cloud, you've got a lot more agility, the ability to make changes really quick, and to be global and work around the clock very quickly and make those changes and follow the sun kind of scenarios. So those types of decisions will be based on what's really great for your business.
One thing that I'm hearing about too is data hubs. Why is Microsoft focused on them right now?
Well, the important thing about a data hub is it takes the best of both worlds. It'll take your relational data and your NoSQL data, and it brings them together. This is really great for taking the best of both worlds, bringing the information together, and allowing you to utilize that data in your best possible scenarios. So whether that's for analytics or for AI, you can leverage both pieces of data to its fullest. And you can do that both on-prem or in the cloud.
Okay. Now, I know you're a Microsoft MVP, so you're well-versed in the Microsoft technologies. What are some of the new features related to, this area that Microsoft is focused on currently?
Well, coming up this year, and right now, actually in public preview, SQL Server 2022 has been released. And in that release, they have two features. One is a cloud feature called Synapse Link, which has the ability to move data to the cloud and use features of the cloud to do your analysis for analytics and AI. And there is also another feature that they've implemented, which it allows you to move data directly to S3. So we worked very closely with Microsoft on this feature as Pure Storage, allowing and doing testing with them to be able to move data to S3. So that would be for us as a company onto our FlashBlade directly to S3 without having to move it onto an additional data store. So previously with Microsoft, you could move data onto S3, but you would have to move it to a local data store and then use a third-party tool to move it to an S3 data store. Now, newly introduced within SQL Server 2022, you can move it directly from SQL Server 2022 directly to that S3 data store. So this really improves the speed of that movement. So you're not having to do a two-hop movement. So you can imagine how much time that's going to save you. And for doing things like Polybase, analytics, or any kind of ML, that's going to make things much, much faster. And you're going to be able to do it directly from S3. We're super excited about this new feature.
Huh. What's Pure's role like? Is the device or is the storage in that movement?
Pardon me?
What's Pure's involvement in that movement of the data from S3? Like what do you guys do to help?
So
or 2S3, I'm sorry, but
the technology within the object store allows, or the SQL Server change that they made within SQL Server allows the protocol to write directly to the FlashBlade, and that S3 protocol is actually an Amazon protocol that just was not a part of SQL Server before this integration with SQL Server 2022.
gotcha. That does seem like a really big deal.
Yeah, it's actually quite monumental because it's S3 is the most common used protocol for the storage of file and object, pretty much on the planet these days. So it's very popular, and particularly for ETL and analytics-based systems, and honestly for backups as well. So now FlashBlade can be used for both analytics by day and backups by night.
Oh, that's really cool. And as far as these technologies that you've been talking about, the Synapse Link and the S3 protocol, what industries or verticals would these be the most relevant to?
They're relevant to many verticals. It's really an all-encompassing opportunity, but I see it often in finance and telecom in particular, and anyone who's really keen on making a difference in disruption, so disruption within their space, and allowing things to go to do things faster. Because you're not having to move large amounts of data around anymore. You're able to bring data together in that concept of a data hub without having to move your data out of SQL Server anymore. Saves so much time.
Well, Melody, I've learned a lot about what's going on with SQL Server 2022 and what Microsoft is up to, and about how Pure is working with Microsoft on a lot of these features. So really appreciate you coming on to this Tech Talk and bringing us up to speed.
It was great being here. Thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, thank you again to Scott and to Melody for just another awesome conversation in the Tech Talk today. My brain is still kind of buzzing. These shorter sessions, they're just jam-packed with info. Now, you can all see that we've got that poll up for you again. We would love for you to take a moment right now to answer this one question. We're wondering what additional information you would like to get from Pure Storage. Again, very important question, helps us know how to follow up, how the team should follow up with you, and what information you would like to get. So a great chance to reach out directly to the experts at the Pure Storage team. So while you're clicking around on that console there, I do also want to remind you all to check out the Handouts tab. If you haven't already done that, now's the time. Open that Handouts tab, click in, open those links, download the white papers, download the solution briefs, check them out, share them, read them later. There's some really exciting content there, so please do make sure that you check that out. Well, with that, I'm giving you a last second to get your poll answers in. Fill it out if you haven't already. Okay, and prize winning. Okay, so we've already reached the end of our webinar today. What an awesome Tech Talk. I love these short, to-the-point conversations we get to have here, and the fun is not over yet, because as you can see, it is time for a prize giveaway. So a reminder that you must be present at the live webinar in order to win. And today's winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is James Laco from Utah. James Laco from Utah. Congratulations to James. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank both DataStax and Pure Storage for making this Tech Talk possible. Giant thank you to you, Chelsea and Melanie, for such fun chats, and for Scott for hanging out on camera with us today. I don't know about you all, but man, I could have kept listening to them for hours. But that's really the cool thing about these shorter sessions. You get some great info that can get you started on some exploration, and then you can take that and run with it and ask some more questions, apply that to your organization. Before we wrap, speaking of questions, I do want to send a big high five and special thank you to all of you who joined us here today for attending, for answering those poll questions and asking some really great questions. I saw lots of great questions coming in. Again, DataStax and the Pure Storage team will be following up with you, so you will get some answers to those after we wrap. I've had a great time with you all today. I've really enjoyed connecting and exploring some of these new ideas and trends. So whether it's a future tech talk, maybe an expert series session, those are awesome on Fridays if you haven't joined us. A summit, we've got one coming up next week, an EcoCast tomorrow, MegaCast. I can't wait to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, I hope you all have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.